the difference between Islamic reformism and Islamic revolutionary approach becomes very clear. Let's go through them one by one. So according to this document, the purpose of Muslim or Islamic Egypt, for example, or Islamic Pakistan would be, firstly, to deepen citizenship. Now, Islamic revolutionary approach is now the purpose of Islamic State would be to cancel citizenship and build a new form of membership of Islamic State, and that was its members would be all slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Muslims as well as non-Muslim, and they will be members of this Islamic State and have rights and duties of given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through his command as members of this Islamic State. So that's the first thing. So that's the first difference between an Islamic reformist state and the Islamic state, if you want to call it. That's the first difference. The second thing is, I'll note them down first so we don't waste too much time. So these are Islamist conceptions. So we reject citizenship. We reject rule of law because this is rule of the law of capital. And we reject freedom and equality. Instead, we promote worship and taqwa and want to create a society based on these values, not these values. And obviously, we don't want to, our purpose is not to create a heaven on this earth, which will eventually be hell. Obviously, if you try to create a heaven on this earth, that would for sure be hell, as the experience of capitalism has shown and the experience of modernity has shown. What we want to create on this earth is a civilization which worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to seek his eternal pleasure and to promote that worship to all those who are willing to accept it. So in that sense, we agree that there's a contradiction in modern nation state and Islamic state. Islamic state is a jihadi state, and by jihadi state we mean purpose is to propagate Islam so that more and more people can become Muslim, seek pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not creating. Its purpose is not to create a welfare Islamic state, for example, or social democracy or liberal democracy. So in that sense we agree with this one. But from this, a lot of simple-minded Muslims might be misled that Halak is promoting something Islamic. He's not. He's not saying that Muslim state, nation state, and Islamic states are contradiction in terms. What he is assuming is that Islamic state cannot be but a nation. Islamic state cannot be. Let me write that. What Halak is assuming is that Islamic state can only be a nation state. We say Islamic state cannot be a nation state and should not be a nation state, and we accept that Islamic state is in contradiction with nation state. So the purpose of Halak's criticism is not to promote Islamic state. The purpose of Halak is for us to reject Islamic reformism and forget about modern state. So that's seems to be his agenda. On the other hand, we want to reject Islamic reformism in favor of Islamic revolutionary approach, which accept that modern nation state is in contradiction with Islamic principle, but we say there can be an Islamic state which is not a nation state, a universalist state. But of course, every Islamic state will be built as a nation state because that's what we have as a fact. But that Islamic state will not define itself as nation state, as we can see from the experience of Taliban in Iran. And Iran, to the extent that it is becoming a nation state, or it is not fully a universalist Islamic state, that's its weakness. But that doesn't mean that we can't have an Islamic state which is a universalist state. So we will create Islamic state which would be nation state to start with, because that's all we are working in reality and within reality, but we are working in reality and within reality to transcend this reality. So today, if we have enough Islamic states within existing boundaries of Muslim nations, then we will be able to transcend those boundaries. That's the hope, anyway. So for so far, anyway, what we accept is that what we accept from Allah's position here is that nation state is contradictory to Islamic Sharia. Not just Islamic Sharia, but Islamic civilization, because nation state might be able to adopt part of Sharia, but not Islamic civilization. So we accept that contradiction, but we reject his inference from that there can't be an Islamic state which is not a nation state. And so from nation state is in contradiction with Islamic Sharia, we don't accept his claim or implicit claim that Islamic state is in contradiction with the Islamic Sharia, because that would be tantamount to saying that our experiences to date exhaust the possibilities, which is not the case. Okay, I think we'll stop here and we'll continue from here, inshallah.